PLC today is about guided reading and student reading achievement, and if that would have an effect on increasing their MAP scores. If this doesn't work, I'll just move over this way. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go through the PowerPoint, and then after the presentation, if you have any questions, you can ask them, and then we'll review and we can discuss if we need to. So the way the PowerPoint is set up is we have the vision statement. I'll discuss some peer-reviewed articles that I found that really support this intervention. I'll talk to you about the intervention of guided reading, some changes I made throughout the process that helped make a difference, show you the data, and then some next steps, things I'm going to try to do next year, and things that I have misconceptions about. So the vision statement was, within 1 year, school year, can students make gains in reading with the implementation of a guided reading program? And this article just kind of focused on how guided reading is a great way to differentiate instruction, how it not only appeals to your struggling readers, but it also can push your more advanced readers to it gives them an opportunity to read materials that are more on their level. Not to mention the strategy fosters a love for reading among students. I think throughout the year, whenever we would finish a book, the first question they had was, what's our next book going to be? So they really enjoyed meeting in groups and reading different books throughout the year. This article I really liked because it talked about how in just 1 year, the average rate of student learning increased by 16%. The second year, there was a 28% increase, and by the third year, there was a 32% increase in the rate at which students were becoming better readers, just for that extra time of reading that was targeted just on their level. That doesn't mean that they're not getting exposed to more complex reading material. It just means that they have an opportunity to work wherever they are at as a reader. So this was at the beginning of the year before we ever started guided reading. We had about one student who was novice. Most of the students fell in the apprentice range, which means they weren't meeting grade level expectations in reading. We had a few proficient and a lower number of distinguished. So that was what, on the MAP data, they run a report that will give you the projected proficiency of the students, and you can, after you take that test, it'll show you, okay, these students are what we project to be in what category at the end of the year on the K-Prep test. And each time you take the test, it will give you that data. So this is where we were at the beginning of the year. Okay, so once we had the data, we decided to put in the guided reading intervention program. And what it was that our guided reading time would not take the place of shared reading time. It would just be an extra 45 minutes a day with students reading books on their level based on their MAP data. So they were grouped based on where they were as readers with the MAP data. The rule was that the lowest group would meet with me the longest, so that they would get more minutes each day. And those higher groups of kids who are probably more independent anyway would work towards being even more independent, and I would meet with them in shorter amounts of time or every other day to see how they were progressing through whatever their task was. But the struggling readers were with me most of the time. At first, it wasn't as structured, like I tried to work through them with a chapter book or something. But in a minute, I'll talk about how when we got the mid-year data, I didn't feel like that was, going very well in the modification that I put in for that. And also, like I said, the higher group would be, their instruction would be more about literature circles, text-dependent questions, chapter books, and things like that. So after about 2 months, they took the MAP test again. Since this was our school's first year implementing the MAP test, it took us till about end of September to get everyone trained. So normally you take this test right like the first full week of school. So we had a delay there, but so that pushed us having to take the mid-year test sooner than didn't give us as much time. I didn't find that the struggling readers were making as much progress, and I kind of found that some of the higher kids didn't make gains and maybe even dropped a few points. So my theory was that these kids, although they were probably capable of doing that kind of reading, I don't know if they were ready to be that independent. I don't know if they were taking full responsibility. And yes, when I met with them, it seemed like their work was done, but I'm not sure how much they were putting into it without me standing right there. And so what I did is I switched my groups around. I took some of those kids who kind of dropped a little bit, and I put them with my lower group so that they had more minutes with me, and it made them more accountable. We also used a Wonders program that was very structured, and it really focused on the comprehension strategies and things like that. So that was the modified intervention. So after we put in that intervention, this first, I guess the lighter purple, if you can tell, these right here, that was before the intervention. And like I said, we still had the novice, we still had several apprentice. After the intervention, you'll see that there were no novice. The apprentice dropped significantly, and the proficient and distinguished raised. So I felt like that was a good intervention to move those kids around. And then that's just the data that if you wanted to compare it to the very first graph, that's without the modification. So you can see that there were no novice, apprentice dropped, and you have a higher rate of proficient and distinguished. So, if you don't want to look at it based on proficiency, you'll see that at the beginning here when you take the map, it'll say, okay, your students are projected to grow so many points in reading or math or whatever. So our students in this class were expected to grow 160 points. They actually ended up surpassing this, and they grew 200 points as a class. At the beginning of the year, 9 students were identified as below grade level. By the end of the year, only 5 were considered below grade level. So like I said, at the beginning of the year, there were 9 students identified as below grade level, and I only have 18 kids, so that's half. By the end of the year, only 5 were considered below grade level based on MAP standards. With 2 of those 5 kids, they were just 1 point away of being in that on grade level. So, to me, they were on grade level. 1 point isn't too many points, but these are some misconceptions I had. Just as a 3rd grade teacher, I think I overestimated the amount of work that students were capable of doing on their own. I need to be more in tune with the kids who, yeah, they may be a very advanced reader, but are they really going to put the effort they need to into what I'm giving them? If not, then that might be a student I'm going to have to keep closer to me. And I instead of waiting for the next test to intervene, I wish I would have done it based on my intuition, instead of having that data. So those students who I'm constantly like watching and they don't seem like they're on task, I think I might switch my group sooner next year. And I really did like the structure program. I ended up implementing the modified intervention, the Wonders program. So that's probably something I will start with next year with that lower group. So, are there any questions?
What specific strategies do you use during guided reading?
So guided reading, to me, is more, I don't really focus on reading standards like identifying theme. I mean, we talk about that, but mostly with those kids, they need help with the comprehension strategy, like visualizing, asking questions, the things that good readers do. So I try to do a lot of think alouds with those struggling readers to let them know, okay, this is how a good reader thinks. Yeah.
What type of books do you use with your advanced readers?
With those students who are more advanced, actually one of the grants I got this year, we got a lot of like I Survived books and chapter books that are going to push those kids. So I used a lot of those. I even have one group this year read Where the Red Fern Grows, and as a third, so you just have to find materials that you think would best suit and things that you think they'll enjoy. Because I think a lot of reading is, do I want to read this? Is it engaging material? So yeah, those types of books, and you listen to them say the things that they like to read, and you try to integrate that